In the 2021 NFL Draft, the Seattle Seahawks picked wide receiver D'Wayne Eskridge in the second round. If you don't recognize his name, to me, it's not really that shocking. Most mock drafts and NFL pundits had Eskridge as a third or fourth round prospect. But remember, as this is the Seahawks we're talking about, they always seem to pick their guy a little bit earlier than most think. Regardless, I spent some time watching Eskridge, and there's a lot that I really like about him. There's a very good reason why they took Eskridge where they did. Before we get started though, I'm going to ask for a favor that you'll like and subscribe to the channel below. I would greatly appreciate that. Now getting back to Eskridge, the first thing you notice about him is that he's not a physically dominant player. He's 5'9", weighs 190 pounds, but the key thing when you turn on his tape is his blazing fast speed. He ran a 4.38 at his pro day. Now while that is certainly good, his other metrics like his 3-cone time, vertical jump, and broad jump were all right around average when you compare them to the rest of the receivers in the class. For Eskridge, the key takeaway is that he has really good straight line speed. This speed shows up all over his film. Now last season he ran a relatively small route tree. He mainly ran crosses, posts, and slants. What you notice is Western Michigan wanted to give him in space in order to maximize his ability after the catch. That's exactly what happened. His yak ability is a big part of his identity and what he offers to the Seahawks. Looking at his advanced stats, he was a top 3 receiver in yards after the catch last season. For me, that tells me a very important skill set for how the Seahawks will use him. They want Eskridge to out-athlete the defense on crossing routes, which should become an even bigger part of the Seahawks offense under Shane Waldron. Additionally, I can already guarantee they'll send him on sweeps and gadget-type plays in the backfield in order to keep a defense honest. Pete Carroll already mentioned that they already have a plan for him in run plays, so I already know what they'll do. When they run their strong side outside zone, they'll use Eskridge as a sweep action just like the Rams used Robert Woods. This will hopefully pull a backside linebacker out of the way in order to create space for the running back. Now outside of this obvious speed, his route running on crossing routes is something that I really enjoyed watching. He made some really nice horizontal cuts to create separation. I can see this offense creating huge plays for him based solely on that skill set. When he hits the open field, he runs like a running back and he has the vision to see creases form before they happen. This also appears in his special teams ability as a returner. He scored a number of touchdowns doing just that. When you look at his route running, I was actually pretty impressed by his ability to beat press. He has some quick footwork to establish a horizontal stretch right at the line of scrimmage, and he uses a nice hand swipe to keep his frame clean from contact. Both of these together allow him to win early and get open against a defender that's overly jumping at the line of scrimmage. This is a huge positive. Eskridge offers man coverage beating ability, and this instantly makes his offense more dangerous. The final positive I want to say is that Eskridge really seems to enjoy run blocking. I know this isn't sexy or a make or break quality, but to me it shows his natural desire to compete. He has no problem throwing his body or at least trying to drive block a defender. I guarantee you this mentality definitely appealed to Pete Carroll. Now, while there are things that I do like about him, he does come with some risks. For starters, Eskridge is already 24 years old. To me, this is a huge red flag because it limits his upside. On top of that, Eskridge played 5 seasons for Western Michigan and he never gained more than 800 receiving yards in a single season. Now granted, he only played 6 games last year and was actually on pace for a 1,400 plus yard season if they played a full schedule. However, the mere fact that he never did this is certainly pretty disappointing given the conference that he was in. While this is a negative and people will point to this as the ultimate red flag ever, what's crazy is that Eskridge actually led the entire NFL draft in yards per route run according to Pro Football Focus. His 4.94 yards per route run was more than Devontae Smith and Jalen Waddle, who both won in the first round. Again, the obligatory comment is that his conference was awful, but that's still pretty impressive regardless. Now generally from a route running standpoint, I noticed 2 main issues. How he stems his routes against off-man coverage needs to be improved. This showed up on a play where he ran an inside breaking route near the end zone. What you're supposed to do in this situation is square up the defender, eat the cushion, take a jab step to the outside cylinder, and then use that to cut back inside. This is what creates the opening. However, look what Eskridge did instead. He ran a stem to the outside, didn't fully commit to the outside cylinder because he was already there, and so all the defender had to do was be patient and he can shut down this route with ease. Again, this doesn't mean that Eskridge is bad at route running or anything like that. In fact, I think he's generally pretty good, but all this means that he can still refine the nuanced parts of his skill set. He has already shown great footwork to get open, but it's the finer points like this that will make him a lot better. Outside of stems like this one, the other thing I saw from Eskridge was that he rarely varies his speed throughout his routes. I think he's fast and he uses that speed well as his main weapon, but I want to see him use variable acceleration in order to win. This will help him create separation against his defenders, and I think this will go a long way in the NFL. Now, so far in this video, we've gone over his skill set and likely usage as a deep speed, yak, and gadget style player. The question I have is if that skill set is worth a 2nd round pick. My honest answer is unfortunately no. However, I do want to be abundantly clear on this. I don't think this is the reach that others are making this out to be. Ideally, the Seahawks would have traded back in the third, but since the Seahawks weren't picking again into the fourth round, I don't hate this pick. Was it a reach? Yeah, it probably was, but it's not as bad as what I've seen other people make it out to be. Now, the other question that you may have is, should the Seahawks have picked a different position? Again, if this is totally up to me, I think my answer is yes. I probably would have taken Creed Humphrey, the center out of Oklahoma, instead. I think center is a much bigger need for this team, but obviously the Seahawks clearly felt different. Overall, Eskridge is a lot of fun to watch once he has the ball in his hands. He has enough speed and press beating ability to win off the line of scrimmage, and there's a clear and obvious fit in Shane Waldron's offense. Running overs, running sweeps, and running posts, they all seem like a great use of his talents, and he can do all those things really well. I think if Eskridge can continue working on opening his hips and the change of pace route running like we've already talked about, he could really surprise people in just a few short years. Well, that's all I have for you in this one. I really hope you enjoyed it. For the next couple of videos, I'll continue looking at a few other NFL draft prospects and their fit on their new teams. Micah Parsons and how he can help transform the Cowboys defense up next. If you enjoyed this video, please do me a huge favor and like and subscribe to this channel. Also, if you want to reach out, feel free to find me on Twitter at Samuel R. Gold.